find my square root in you share. Cause you know, cause on the economy, it is a sorry. Cause the book of economy, it is a sorry. Boy, you be check economy, economy.
Good night, all alternate viewers, and welcome to this evening's program. I am your host, Kimar Short, and I am happy to have you. I am joined by fellow host, Mr. Nigel Franklyn. Welcome back to Alternate Views, Nigel. Very happy to have you, sir. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stewart. It has been well missed, alternate views, and I gotta applaud you. I like that intro a lot. I like that intro a lot. You surprised me with that one, man. I like that one. That one is very nice, very fitting for alternate views. Welcome to
Yeah.
all the alternate viewers, everyone that was here early. Very, very good to have you guys here in our presence and have your presence. And hand it back over to you, Mr. Stewart, if you get the ball rolling.
Yeah, well, thank you, Nigel, for being back here. Um, I missed this show. So let me first welcome back the crickets as usual. Um, the external animals, we always welcome them into our conversation. But more importantly, let's welcome back all of the alternate viewers who tuned into the program. Since the introduction was so great, we're going to have that intro once again, because that intro will be the intro for alternative views, and it will be improved as we go on and as we add further content. That was just a brief introduction as what is to come. So remember, today's theme is new settings. Right? Um, Let me first say a big good evening and a thank you to um, everyone who's on the stream so far. Let me just welcome you guys, the early Patreon viewers. Nigel Carrington, who's saying good evening, and we're looking forward to a great show tonight on Alternative Views. Um, Thank you, Nigel. You were first, long before 7 o'clock, so it shows that we were missed. So thank you. Fabian Yard, good evening to you, Fabian. Fabian is saying good night, Kima. Welcome back with the truth for the people of Barbados. So thank you very much, Fabian. Mystic Angel, good evening to you. Joseph Kadagan is saying hello, everyone. The journey now begins. Marcia is saying welcome back. Hello, all alternate viewers. Good evening to you, Marcia. 24 Griffith, Shirlene Clark. Thank you very much. Joseph is saying great opening. Marcia is saying welcome back, Nigel. Mr. Angel is saying brilliant introduction. So we're going to have that intro, Nigel. Since it was so brilliant. One more time.
Find my square root in you, share. Cosino, Cosumi, economy, if you say so. Economy, if you say so. Boy, me, you check economy, economy.
Yes, yes, yes. That was a good one. That was good. It feels real good to be back, man. We definitely missed this on Thursdays. Missed this conversation. It went beyond just conversation. It was a place to meet and bring ideas and discuss. Though we don't always agree, it's a valuable space to be for us to come and join together. So thank you everybody for coming back again. As you could tell, I'm very, very elated to get this show on the road again. We'll hand over to you, Mr. Stewart.
Yeah. So thank you, Nigel. Today, though, we shall start this evening's session with praise to the Most High, God for bringing us here yet again. So what I want to do is to start this evening's session with a quote from the Living Bible. Right? The Living Bible. And I'm going to read the scripture that my hand touched on immediately. And it says at Proverbs that the wise love truth. The wise love truth. And starts at Proverb 15, goes on to 16. It's quite a bit, but we're going to try to read some. right? It says that, again, the wise love truth. It says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but harsh words cause quarrels. A wise teacher makes learning a joy. A rebellious teacher spouts foolishness. The Lord is watching everywhere and keeps his eyes on both evil and the good. Gentle words can cause life and health. Griping brings discouragement. When a fool despises his father's advice, a wise son considers each suggestion. There is treasure in being good, but trouble dogs the wicked. Only the good can give good advice. Rebels can't. The Lord hates the gifts of the wicked, but delights in the prayers of his people. The Lord despises the deeds of the wicked, but loves those who try to be good. If they stop trying, the Lord will punish them. If they rebel against that punishment, well, they may die. Depths of hell are open to God's knowledge. How much more the hearts of all mankind? A mocker stays away from wise men because he hates to be scolded. A happy face means a glad heart, and a sad face means a breaking heart. A wise man, Nigel, is hungry for truth, while the mocker feeds on trash. End quote. Um, as we started, the wise love the truth, and alternate views is a space of truth. And we are here to, as the good word says, gentle words will cause life and health. And we are here to, preach life and bring life. And through our words and through our work on the program, spread the good deed, the good word, however that may be. No, Nigel. Um, as we proceed with that good word from the proverb, it's always good to start with that covering.
For sure.
Um, that is the word of the living God, our God. Now, I want to go on to a man who was very wise right here on earth, a good old mentor of mine, Dr. the good man, Dennis Law.
Hmm.
Um, that's a reminder to all persons of the journey, the book. Is his book, the journey. Right. Then we go on to the journey and we want to take, give me a page, by the way.
Okay. We start out. Starting out with the first.
All
Maybe
right.
uh, maybe go up page 36. We
Yeah.
can start.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, this is the month of April, the month for the spring. So I am hoping, Nigel, that you can drop some knowledge, that you would have learned over in Ethiopia about April. Traditionally in this world, we celebrated April as April Fools. The first April as April Fools, but as we got older and as we got wiser, we sought the truth. And then, we have a different and an alternate view on what is April. Could you give me that number once more? You said 36.
Yeah, 36. We got Joseph Cadogan contributing at page 13. So you pick between the two.
Yeah, yeah. I can go with yours. Um, right. So Dr. Law said at page 36 in his book, um, he said here, let me let's get it right. The heading is, do I believe I have a purpose in life? Do I believe I have a purpose in life? And he said, it is not enough to want a true life on a trial and error basis, hoping to hit a target, but often missing the mark. To believe that there is a specific purpose to life helps us to create a structure to the way we live our lives. It demands that there are goals in place and a set of strategic set out strategies for attaining the same, where we are committed to the belief that there is a unique purpose for which we have been created. We tend to become more focused on seeking to know ourselves better. Also, we are less likely to become enslaved to the marginal expectations imposed upon us. Over the last few years, I've done a bit of work consulting in North America and the Caribbean. In this regard, you've encountered many workers during training and motivational sessions, and I've heard them tell stories of how unhappy and unfulfilled they are with their present jobs. Many say how they want to change their careers and find something more meaningful to their total lives. They don't see themselves as really making a lasting impact on the lives of their customers or colleagues. I hear them say how they are constantly searching for that light to come on in their heads and to provide the answers to the many questions as to where they need to go with their careers and lives. I remember delivering training on self development for companies, and one employee expressed such bitterness and anger because she had allowed herself to become so caught up with doing the company's work that she allowed her dream, her purpose, to pass her by. She, now in her early 50s, believed that she could have developed her own product line some years ago and by now would have experienced some significant measure of personal validation and inner contentment. But what was even more interesting about her comments is when she said, for most of my life, I never really believed that I had a particular purpose to fulfill. I just saw my life as doing what I needed to do to keep me and my family going. End quote by Dr. Dennis Law from The Journey, The Path to Finding True Self Meaning.
Dr. Lilly, he was looking in the future. Rest in peace to the elder, but that sounds very timely. That sounds like the average person, not only in Barbados but everywhere. Complaining about the pressures of life, the expensiveness of everything, the lack thereof of increasing pay, just stress in general, and it's not just a one isolated area type of thing. So it's very, very global. But big up to Dr. Law for that one, for sure.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, Nigel, um, what's very interesting about Dr. Law's what's very interesting about Dr. Law's contribution
Mhm.
is that, and you are correct, most people around, not just Barbados, this is the world, could carry that same story. And they usually do carry that same story. And we take jobs in spaces that we really would not take jobs if we had better options. Um, People take jobs to become underemployed, way below the level that they're qualified because they have to eat. Family has to eat. You might have kids, so the kids have to eat. Right? So, well, we take on these jobs just to fulfill a moment or to fulfill that requirement, that economic requirement for survival. We allow our purpose to pass us by. Right? So, I recently put a post on Facebook which said or spoke to a prominent businessman, Anderson Cherry, and taking risks. And many people might know Anderson Cherry as the owner of Jose and Jose, those big red garbage trucks, right? And he's a success story that I wish many people across Barbados could learn from. He often reiterates to the public that he's not a scholar or he's not a university graduate, he's not a BCC graduate. Um, Says the only certificate he has is his birth certificate, and he leads a rather successful life because he was able to follow his purpose. Right? He followed the dream he had, you know, and today he is one of the success stories for a black person living in Barbados against the odds. Cole Williams, right? Cole Williams. If you listen to Cole Williams' uh, autobiography and you read Cole Williams' book, you will see that Cole Williams started from very humble beginnings, and he started with one piece of equipment. And now today, Cole Williams is a conglomerate. Right? So, Nigel, Dr. Law, I would say we started with we got about the way seek the truth. Right? And then Dr. Law opened up further conversation and saying, well, look, in finding your truth, you need to find your true purpose for life. Right? So, don't mind you at work right now. Don't mind you doing that side hustle right now. Right? There's something much bigger for you in the future if you seek it out and follow it, which is much bigger than just going to work to pay bills for survival, but really and truly a perpetual unhappiness and not really realizing, the inner joys and the inner comforts of life, but really and truly being stuck on the hamster wheel. Remember you saw it on the TV where the hamster would run around the corporate the corporate ladder, just running and running around and never reaching fulfillment or happiness. Uh so yes, so that was Dr. Law.
So let me
And
say something, Mr. Stewart. Let me say in talking about purpose, and I think when we speak about matters like this that you aren't necessarily tangible, it's best we define these terms, right? So purpose, the reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. The reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. So, with that understanding of purpose, that is the space that we speak of it from. What were you created to do? What is your purpose here on earth? What is your purpose at this job? What is your purpose as a mother? What is your purpose as a father? What is your purpose as a son? And so on and so forth. So purpose. And as Dr. Lewis said, without purpose, you don't necessarily have a direction, and that's like moving around, chasing your tail. Back to the comment that you said, Kimura, about the hamster wheel, the perpetual hamster wheel of running around in circles. So to have a direction, to have a point of reference is very, very valuable. And it proves to be very, very valuable based on not just words, not just holy scriptures, but on life as lived. Anyone that has achieved something of not whether it's vain, whether it's holy, if they've achieved something that they have set out on a journey, on a desire with a purpose to accomplish it. And that is the beginning of finding that space in this world, this beautiful, crazy world that we live in of fulfillment, satisfaction, and contentment. So just want to
uh,
add that piece.
thank, thank you for introducing that angle, Nigel. Well, we could start with ourselves first and foremost, because this is new settings. This is not the same old structure. This is called new settings, but we must always start with self. So, if a man can't help himself, the chances of him being able to help you are zero, right? Um, so I say, or I'm thinking, my purpose, or what is my purpose in life? What is my purpose for posting alternate views? What is my purpose for writing articles? What is my purpose for studying banking and finance at Cave Hill? What is my purpose for writing a book? What is my purpose for collaborating with Nigel? What is my purpose for interacting with the alternate viewers? You know, what do I get from doing these things? What is it a financial reward? Is it self praise? Like what is your purpose for doing what you do every day? I would ask myself these questions first and foremost. Like, so, in an attempt to answer some of those questions, I, as a young person in Barbados, look on to, I would say, the landscape of the country. And the landscape meaning politics, the economics of it, meaning, the way you live, how money flows, how you earn money, the income of your parents, the family, you look on and you see these things. Um, and then you say to yourself, well, what future am I going to have as an adult in Barbados growing up? So in my earlier years, this is when Oinafa was in power, in our earlier years, because we were born in 1994, and Oinafa came into power in 1994. And then there was a change of government in around 2007, 8. Like, so you're looking on and you're seeing, and you're young and you're growing up and you're listening. And I often told myself that I would love to contribute to Barbados, or contribute to the country, contribute to the conversation or the consciousness of how the country flows, right? It isn't that I necessarily had to be in politics per se, right? But how could it contribute to what that is? Right? So as a youngster looking on, seeing David Thompson and Warnafa go at it, and I can remember days at St. Michael's. We'd have some very robust conversations. Me and Kevin Edie, uh, the guy that hosts Kev's Politics, the podcast Kev's Politics. We all sat at school together. I would have some very robust discussions about the country. And I am saying to you that those conversations in those early years, um, what you're saying now is just a manifestation of that. So we were always kind of, I don't want to say politically conscious, but we were always conscious to how the country functioned as young people at secondary school. Right? So the public is now being exposed to those conversations that happen in the corridors at lunchtime, and you carry those relationships up to community college, to university. You hone your skill now in a particular discipline. So I study banking and finance, right? And that led me to seeing or becoming fully now politically conscious to what is happening in Barbados. So actively paying attention now. And I said to myself, um, I think we need to relook the way we do politics in this country. And we really need a change in the way how the economy of this country functions, and we need a change in how the politics of this country functions. Because we've had since independence years, right? Two political organizations manage the country, right? And I would have started my political journey, Nigel, with Solutions Barbados,
Mm-hmm.
which is a party which was outside the BLP and the DLP. Right? It was outside. So, it was a very interesting perspective to have entering the space believing that Barbados wanted a new, I don't want to say a party, but a new way of thinking in the way we do things
Mm-hmm.
in the country. Right? And at 23 years old, and there were only two other persons in Barbados to do this. At 23 years old, I was brave enough to put my name on a electoral ballot to contest a general election in 2018 against the sitting Prime Minister of Barbados now. Like, bold enough to do it. Um, so, while many persons saw it as a daunting task, I didn't feel daunted anyhow because it was purpose driven. It,
Mm-hmm.
it was something far beyond what the naked eye could perceive. So it wasn't about coming into the space for money. It wasn't about coming into the space for any recognition. It wasn't about coming in to play the same, tipsy doodly daddly, but it was more following that purpose God had for me because I was working, right? I was working, coming up, trying to build my life as a youngster. I was working at Sandy Lane at the time, and I just gave up everything, just gave up every single thing, and just dive into the political space. Not just floating, but with a focus nature of how can I impact the way how this economy functions. How could I make it better for persons like different groups, different groups who need attention, different vulnerable groups who need attention. Barbados functions every day. It works every day. These people pay into the system every day. However, the system seems not to function the right way for them. Like,
It
but
seems not to function in the right way, or it functioning in the right way, and we got the wrong view. We got the wrong idea. Which one?
we have the wrong idea how it's supposed to function, but it functions the correct way for who it's supposed to function for.
All right, cool, cool. But let me ask you a question though. So it sounds to me like you saying your journey into the political sphere was based off of a certain chain of events, a certain number of influences, just naturally, but it all come to a head and let you know, well, this journey that I am embarking upon is of such importance. Let me just step. We didn't have a mentor of any capacity, or it was just the fire in you to say, well, look, listen, I could see that something is wrong. And as far as I'm aware, in order to impact, influence, uplift, help, this is the sphere in which that is supposed to happen. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but not yeah, for the gist of it. The gist of
Mm-hmm.
it. Maybe it would, articulate some words differently,
Mm-hmm.
but for the gist of it, you enter with the idea that this is not personal or akin to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
No one is holding up their hand and say, come, son, here is politics. I'm leaving you a generational something, come in and take it up. Or, I think it wasn't anything like that. It was that I personally give some ideas to somebody as to how I think it should run, how I think it should function. I've been speaking to people about how I think this thing should work, how I think it should function. And I'm telling them, well, you should take this information and go and give it to XYZ and see how they will use it. But the person I'm giving it to the same way, but when you're giving it to me, why you don't go and do it yourself?
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me all these things, you know it this good, why don't you go and do it yourself? And like me, nah, no, that's no, I didn't see my purpose to be that at the time,
Mm-hmm.
like because I left home with a self-limiting attitude. Self-limiting meaning that like I didn't think that politics would be favorable to Kemar Short or persons like Kemar Short or persons who grew up with a similar background or similar way of life to Kemar Short. That's not how it functioned traditionally. And you can look in the realm and see it for yourself, right?
That's exactly why I asked the question, because the viewer, the one viewer or the couple of viewers that might be listening to you and can see themselves and can hear themselves and wondering how did he do it? Wait, how he step in? This is not something that I traditionally see or usually see. So that is why I went down the line of questioning, but it
Yeah.
clarified it for them very, very nice. But continue.
Yeah. It's just a matter of swallowing that lump, right? Uh, it's just a matter of doing it, actually finding the courage, the inner strength to just say, I am going to do it and don't back down. I have at least one person who could fortify that attitude in you when you get weak. And those moments when you say, well, look, I don't feel they can do it. I catch in cold feet. Right? That person to be there to tell you, well, no, you could do it. Just keep going, keep pushing it forward. You could do it. So I had that. So when I got the cold feet, I had a person saying, well, no, but even if I take this information and try to use it, you still got to come and explain it. So you still have to be present. Right? So when I got enough courage to live or be present in what I could produce, right? Not just produce and give it and walk away and leave it, but to be present in what you produce, so what you could produce. That's how I got over that barrier or that mental barrier of saying that I wasn't too young. I wasn't. I don't think that I was educated enough, but I was educated enough, right? I didn't think that I had enough money, but I had everything that I needed, right? But there was nobody over you saying, well, look, you have this, you have that. If they do this, do that, pull here, pull there. It wasn't any of that. It was a process of figuring it out, running into other people who were in the space, asking questions, learning, finding out, reading, networking, trying to get the deeper understanding, listening to God, asking him, is this the path for you to be on? Is this the right road? And you get all the green lights, right? So why now walk away from the true God given purpose just because some persons or person may not see it or have the same view as you, right? Why walk away from your purpose, right? Why walk away from your purpose when a very minute set of individuals may have an alternate view to Nigel? So, um, since I'm a believer in Rasta and the Rasta community, um, Nigel carries locks, right? Traditionally, we understand the fight that was associated with locks, Nigel, right? Traditionally, we understand the fight that so, but if Nigel say, man, look, I can, I am going to limit myself, right? I'm going to limit myself or limit the way I want to express myself and not grow my hair the way that I see fit, because I don't feel that I could progress, especially progress in some place like America, um, as a person with locks. Right? If you had that self-limiting belief, you still be right here in Barbados with a bald head, right?
I understand that it happens though. It does happen. It happens in life to people. We could speak to the positive end and to support, but we gotta acknowledge that there is things in place that are proven to be very challenging to the
Mm-hmm,
average man, unless he has the certain information, he has the certain confidence, he has the certain network, he has the certain environment that would allow to think like a seed, right? There's a
mm-hmm,
parable of the sower, where there are seeds scattered in many different environments, right?
mm-hmm,
The seed that grew the best was the one that was thrown in a fertile ground, that it
mm-hmm,
was able to grow and sprout its roots, which then gave it strong foundation. Then it was able to grow and blossom and produce its fruit, produce its shade, and do what it's supposed to do. So, in the acknowledgement of that is the ideal, we can also at the same time give a nod and give an understanding that most people in the world right now is in that middle ground of trying to figure out which foundation or which where should I be in order to be my best self, to grow and to blossom and to bring forth what is that I really got inside of me to the world as a gift, because we ain't here for ourselves. We ain't
Hmm.
here for ourselves. This life that we got is a gift. Every day you lay down, you wake up is another gift. It just depends on your perspective in life. But there's a lot that takes us away from that. And I am happy to hear your testimony on steering that path when there really wasn't nobody to guide you in a sense. That's a testament to the natural way of how we as human on this earth supposed to move. Intrinsically, inside out, not outside in. Shouldn't be moving off reactions. We shouldn't be moving off what people got to say. We shouldn't be moving off what people got to think. Is really you and your relationship. Rasta said, I know, right? A lot of people back in time used to laugh at Rasta, laugh at the lots, laugh at the lifestyle. In the fullness of time, you see how things has changed and how approaches has changed towards things when things are fully explained and seen as they are and not as what you think it is. You know? Even though, look, in school, I couldn't, how bad it won't grow here in school? Similar school as a black you I could not grow my hair past a certain point because that's unruly. You understand? So no children going to school at secondary school with some of the Chris's hair plaits so yeah, we're going on here. But that's time. That's the fullness of time, expanding. So what something mean today could mean something very different tomorrow. And somebody reaction to something today could be a very different reaction tomorrow. So it it takes a certain type of groundedness, a certain type of maturity, a certain type of compassion, a certain type of grace to walk in this life with that type of understanding. So that when you step in certain situations, spaces, places, you carry that understanding, which allows for you now to draw the fullness of the experiences out of this, because you ain't coming in with no limiting beliefs. You're not coming in telling yourself you're less than, or because I this, or because they might think this. But that ain't none of that don't help you do nothing. All them things is against yourself, against a self. We don't promote or practice nothing like that. You know. But can I continue, man? Continue. Very powerful testimony, Mr. Stewart.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to summarize, because I'm saying here, look, I don't consider myself to be, on more negative or contributing negative static to society. So we have a crisis right now going on in Barbados. It is not a youth crisis. I call it a king too. I can call it for what it is now. We have a crisis among the young black population of Barbados. Males, right? In terms of every day or every 2 days, somebody's being shot, dead, or stabbed. A black person below, not everybody, but between the ages of 16 and 30. Right? No, it is not Muslim, Indian boys that are being shot and stabbed. It is not white boys, English or Jewish boys being shot or late, any other race, but young black boys in Barbados, right? No, we have some habits in Barbados. Um, let me say this. I believe that we are creating a breeding ground or making it the ground more fertile to be prosperous on blocks or on any block life, and making it more and more difficult to be prosperous in the academic, the more upward or more upstanding side of life, right? No, it became very easy to get drugs, to get a gun, to enter into the trade and trade it. So within that life, there's always jail probably coming, death probably coming, and other tribulations along the way that may be unseen. Right? Now, when you try to go to school in Barbados, get a job, try to pay taxes, try to be an outstanding citizen, here you have some hypocritical, tinfoil people. I don't know sometimes where they do be hiding, but they just appear to then try to pull down young people in society from wanting to progress and do other things outside the tradition. Because realistically, tradition in Barbados brought us to this point. So if you see that Barbados is so bad, things ain't working, um, everything going bad, every set of actions, all the actions we took up to this point brought us to where we are today. Everything that's both the good and the bad, right? Things that we did traditionally brought us here. Like we open a lot of gates that give breathing ground to what happening today, right? So again, and it's speaking for myself, when you're trying to progress, right? You're trying to progress. Here you have people often hypocritical, often hypocritical. Like to point fingers. Why don't you young people, or why don't you keep more short, go back to university and finish your degree, and you're an economist, and you're in a this, and you're in a that, and you're a gangster, and you're with your rastas, and more of, I would say, negative conversation, right? Not a very encouraging conversation. Whereas to say, um, young Kimastro, we recognize that you're doing some good work in society, and through to all the persons it impact, we could help to, contribute in that. We have resources that you could set up some reading programs through lifelong learning to assist the young boys that find themselves in trouble. Set up some mentorship programs that you could target these young teens that try to give back, that they'll be more prone not to want to go the route of gun violence. Um, you would be able to set up a session that they could be able to come, as you being an author, come and set up a session that they could be able to come and learn to write books, to become young authors, right? To become, young songwriters. We can't get that from some people, right? We can't get that from some in Barbados, right? So I am my solution, right? Cause I'm not harping. My solution here, right? And I always start with self. What I am doing about it is that I am practically waking up every day, starting with myself and those persons around me, as to how we could do better for others, while shutting out and drowning out the negative, even if that negative comes from within the circles, within your space, just drowning it out, because the God given purpose is much bigger than any music noise that may be happening. Kick key master all the light, right? Kick key master all the light. Tell key master you ain't gonna do how much you like. Tell key master you back and you ain't got no money in the car in the seat. Tell key master all it is you want. Tell key master. However, what remains, what's happening is that your child probably liable to be shot the way our society going, and Kimastra is actively out there trying to enlighten and allow the population to become aware of the ills that they're facing, some of the root causes of these ills, and what they could do or may be able to do, even if it's just small, to be able to bring some positive impact to the self and bring some positive impact to the people around them, immediate, the children, the family, the friends, the associates, the colleagues in the workplace. Uh, Rev, Nigel. Um, so yeah, so alternate views, Nigel, is all about flipping the script, right? It's all about becoming wise and seeking the truth as the core that we took from the Living Bible as we start, this, sorry, and we're going to keep in the vein of the truth, um, irrespective on if we face ridicule, irrespective on if we face scorn, because at the end of the day, the truth really and truly does not spoil, no? And yeah, so any thoughts from you?
Mm, okay. So let me ask you this. Based on, as you said, there's a lot of violence going on right now, very rampant. And not only rampant, but weird, for lack of better terms. It's happening very, very strange, and there's a lot of concern, right? So there's lots of concern. How would you advise the people, or what would you say to the people that are afraid? How would you speak to the people that are afraid right now? And we know fear is a mind killer. Fear is a very powerful tool and tactic that people use and employ to control people. But how would you advise those that may be fearful right now on the island?
Well, as of this moment, I think the fear is being perpetuated through the media. Instant data, instant information, instant WhatsApp. If you come into the knowing that something has happened at that violent level, is when you go on to social media and you see it. Or you listen to VOB and you hear it coming off the radio. Somebody pick up the cell phone and call you and say, well, you somewhere else being shot. Or you pick up the newspaper and see brazen murder, two more shot dead at the front of the newspaper, right? So you go into that panic fear, like, you know, so much violence, so so much is happening. Then on top of that, you have politicians. You have politicians shouting across the earth, crime, attorney general, more people dead, and then So I would say to the people of Barbados, fear straight up. I can't just say calm the fears, but reassure. Okay, I should reassure the people of Barbados that there are people here who care about your general well-being and safety. Right? Take whatever precautions necessary to protect yourselves within legal bounds, of course. Right? To protect yourselves within legal bounds, of course. Um, However, I think that some of us have the ability to contribute to, I would say, controlling some of the aggression that we experience that cause these things to happen. So I know there are freak incidents that happen. Like you could just be by a netball court as a youngster playing, and two fellows pull up and just start shooting. Right? No, realistically, there's nothing a police officer could do at that particular moment, or the police force could do to stop an act like that from occurring. Right? Stop an act like that from occurring, or like you could prescribe measures after, Nigel. You could prescribe measures after, like if we catch you, each man can get 120 years in jail, right? So I guess the people want to hear an aggressive, I want to hear a firm approach, right? That the police and the customs officers and everybody locking on the ports. The scanners are working. Luggage and effects are being searched. Um, the police and the defense force are out there on corners, you know, searching suspicious vehicles, going after persons whose name might be allegedly involved in the trafficking of uh, firearms. And people want to hear that firm approach, until until they realize that they have to give up something in exchange. So if you want more peace, if you want more security, you have to give up more rights. So that involves less privacy now. Right? So you want more police in the communities. However, you have to bear in mind now that your car can be searched more often. Right? You have to bear in mind that sometimes when you come up for a stretch foot, that police and soldiers gonna just be randomly passing through your neighborhood with guns, and your son and your children and your daughters have to be playing seeing police and soldiers with guns patrolling the area up and down, not feeling safe, right? Not feeling safe. So it is a two-edged sword, Nigel, in that the people and a state has the right to protect its people, right? In every way possible. Everywhere possible. So I'm saying set up the CCTV cameras where necessary, right? Um, I'm not so much on the idea with the ports thing. I think there are so many guns already in Barbados. They already got so many guns in Barbados already. Um, you got to try to get some of those ones off the streets right now. Would that involve, Nigel? The police want more leniency to search people's residences, to search people's properties, right? And then people will start to complain, Nigel. People will start to complain, Nigel, that the police and the army are intruding on the sense of security and peace. So it is a very touchy topic. But Nigel, to wrap up and to speak directly to the hearts of my people, bro. Right? Have no fear. Right? Have no fear. Barbados has not gotten to the point. It has not gotten to the point where there is serious kidnappings. Right? It has not gotten to the point where there are home invasions, armed home invasions, to the point that people actually, you know, running in people's houses with guns, and it has not gotten to that. These things may happen at a one-off, but not consistent to that point. Where in other Caribbean countries, right? It has not gotten to the point where gangs set up cordons and tell innocent citizens that they can't pass unless they pay a tax. It has not gotten to the point where armed gunmen would come to your business for extortion, to extort businessmen. It has not gotten to that level, so we still have a sweet and beautiful island, right? So let me hit the bullseye right on the head right there, Jill. With the exception of one-off instances, right, where random people were hurt, or bystander, some bystander was hurt, majority of the people who are being shot are by this violence, people who were directly involved in the violence, right? People who are directly involved in violence, and it seems to be targeted violence, right? It seems to be targeted violence at young men, young black men in Barbados that are between a particular age group. Because if you look at newspapers, youngsters are 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, a majority going up the road for guns and ammunition, murder, right? So I can't see it based off that one group that the violence is rampant in communities in Barbados. It's not in particular. I find Barbados still to have its security and its peace intact. However, I think it'd be very difficult to police. It's very difficult to police the particular age. If you look at the age group, it's very difficult to police um, that bracket because, as I say, everybody don't live one place. But over to you.
Mhm. That's true, man. That's a strong word there, brother. Very strong word. Um, let me speak passionately just for a moment, you know. While I affirm and agree that Barbados has not yet gotten to those lengths, we still have a humanity on the island that comes from way back when. But I am afraid that generation is stepping away. That generation passing, them time come and gone. And the generation that is coming, um, the foundational things that would have allowed the elder generation to be a little bit more grounded, a little bit more humble, a little bit more God fearing. Those aren't the things that are being passed on to the youngsters, and we can't blame them for that. We can't blame them for that. But I would say one innocent life is too much. Let the bad boys shoot the bad boys. Let do what they got to. But one innocent life is too much. In the grand scheme, we know you can't control them things, but speaking from a human perspective, you know. And then let me take it global. That's Barbados, Palestine, and Israel. How many innocent lives getting lost on a daily basis for months on end? You know? So sometimes you gotta put things in perspective. Yes, we could look at it from a micro perspective and say it's terrible. This ain't how we used to be, and it's true. Things are changing. But in a global sense, we got hope. And is in that hope I would like the people to hold on to. The faith that when the elders given us, hold on to that. Or you don't get old being foolish. There got a lot of old foolish people, but you don't get old being foolish. You know? Hold on to that faith. But yeah, I really think one innocent life is too much. I think about me at 13, you know? Rest in peace to 13-year-old. I think about me at 13, running about, getting school, catching the van from St. Lawrence Road, straight to town. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes staying in town, moving around, sometimes in the van, sometimes not. But that could have been anybody. And it's very unfortunate and sad that it was that young man. But rest in peace to him and condolences to all those that are mourning in this time.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Nigel. I do say rest in peace to Jonathan. This was his name, Jonathan Chase, and to
Mm,
all the persons who would have lost their lives, who would have lost their lives by gun violence. No, we personally know someone who was our friend who would have attended secondary school who would have lost his life from gun violence as well. Um, Romario Lewis, he would have been shot at a young boy, um, fresh out of school, not really living life, he ain't even past 20 years old. So, as you said, Nigel, one life is too many. However, I want some conversations, right? Um, People speak to say, well, look, uh, get the guns off the street, get the guns off the street, young people dying from by the gun. Now, if you get the guns off the street and you have a spike and murders by the knife, then will you say no? Let's get the knives off the street. Let's get the knives off the street, right? Now we have to think about the way society has evolved. You spoke about the good lessons that the elders passed on to us, Nigel. Now I want to say that majority of our elders in Barbados, in particular, were Christian minded. Even if they were not full Christians, they were Christian minded people. Majority of them, right? Even if they didn't go to church, they were Christian minded and they had those values. Now, Barbados society has evolved so rapidly, right? That hold a second. So my apologies. Society has evolved in such a way that people are leaving the church and have left the church, right? And I mean all denominations of the Christian church. Just look at the numbers in church. In some churches on the Sundays, I look at the demographics of the church on Sundays. Majority elder people. Like the middle generation is missing, and majority of the younger people are missing. Not saying they're not young people in churches, they are. So all police, just say that. But there are some young people in church, but not the majority. A fat will be filled countless times before the church for young people. It will be. Now, I say all of that to say society evolved in a way where there's other influences in Barbados, right? Other influences. So where before you had a good church on Sunday, now on a Friday, people going to the mosque in Barbados, right? When you're going to the mosque, then on Tuesday you're going to the lodge on Tuesday, right? So obviously there will be a change. The input has changed now. So really, it was just church alone. People moving away from the church. I gave you two new institutions, and people, following these new paths in life, which you could consider them universities in themselves too. Where we're going to learn a lot. Other alternate institutions, not just the church. So you see new trends emerge. You see new behaviors emerge, right? So along the way, right, and as times are getting economically harder, people tend to have less morals and less values. The higher the cost of living and the harder a country is, right? So people would do things they normally wouldn't do when times become harder to survive, right? So you have again the growing Muslim population and the influence of Muslim population in Barbados, the weakening of the Christian influence in Barbados, right? And then you got other groups coming in, Nigel, that change the way how people see life and do things. And you have children in Barbados now, right? Who outrightly reject religion and religious philosophy and religious knowledge. The government system taking it out the schools, right? So remember when we were young, we probably did religious education, and we had to go to school on a good church on a day. No, all of that is out there. We don't know. And there's an introduction of new spiritual systems in Barbados, right? So you even have no like it's influence now of Africa, right? You have your systems, different belief systems, right? People know influencing what Barbados was. So go back any years, Nigel, very, very Christian. the Christian hold was stronger, and the church had space for people. Whereas in the church owned majority of the lands. The church educated the people. A majority of the people used to go to church school. Majority of the people live on the church land, and majority of people would go into the church. Now, I guess after independence, right? Because Barbados had a joint system, right? Where the clergy and the state was tied together, Nigel, right? So the Anglican, let me correct myself. There was a church, which was the predominant church of Barbados, and that church was actually like annexed as the state church. So there wasn't really a difference between the state and the church. So during the independence era of Barbados, one of our prime ministers actually made a separation to say that the church can be up here, church can run godly, but the state will run secular, right? You had that. Fast forward, okay, Rachel. I hope you get the point here out there, try to be. Fast forward here again, though, Rachel. Um, there's the introduction of, I tell you, we done with prayer now, there's something called mindfulness sessions, right? You done with church now is more the mosque or nothing at all, right? And there's more of a way where like the two people seek out alternate lifestyles and hold fast and steadfast to that and do what they had to do. And it's much easier now, Major. It's much easier now to make money from outside of Barbados. So people immune themselves really and truly from the impacts of um system, and allow their funding to come in and do what they have to do, and basically push off any influence or push off any possibility that their new ways of life could be disturbed. Yeah.
Um, what I would say to that is there's a lot of different things that impact and affect culture and people. The biggest thing that I found is the identity of an individual, and then broaden that out to a community, country, empire, kingdom, whatever you want to call it. No, the definition, I like definitions. I like to deal with what things mean, so we have a grounded understanding. Definition of identity is the fact of being who or what a person or thing is. So if we use that definition and we apply it to society at large, what is Barbados? What is the identity of Barbados? What is the identity of the average individual in Barbados? What do they see themselves as? What do they think of themselves as? Because as far as the definition of identity goes, you can't act outside of what you believe you are. So if I believe I is a bad man, I can act and move like a bad man. You understand? If I is a soldier, I can act and move like a soldier. I can put myself in spaces and places that I can find soldiers and do what soldiers is do. Right? As for me, if I am created in the image and likeness of the Most High Creator, then we got to act and move as such. Right? The spiritual aspect of that now is why I think a lot of the youth step away from the church because we are in information age. We have there's a overload of information. We can't possibly compute the amount of information we digest and look at on a daily basis. You understand? So with that revelation of information, you've seen, well, man, this thing ain't really No, wanna teach me this thing or wanna say this thing, but listen, I find any loopholes. I'm having questions and I'm not getting any answers. All when I ask questions, all they tell me is to keep the faith. Don't question God. Don't question nothing. And that is going against your natural way of moving and thinking in this world as a human being. We have critical thinking. We can think. So we will. So I find when questions are asked or when there is a life preached and not practiced, and people see the loopholes, it's like, what? You a hypocrite? What you telling me? Well, I didn't. You telling me this and you doing this. But so much of the older days were do as I say and not as I do. And we find out that that is not an equation that works because we can use children as an example. Children rarely listen. However, they have never shied away from copying. We learn more from what we see and observe than what we hear. That's the truth for the matter. So what we are seeing is there's a space and a place or a frequency that exists right now of negativity, of pride, of ego, of vanity, of misidentity. And this, what we're seeing on the ground is a manifestation of that type of mindset, that type of thinking. That can be affected from a state level. As we said, that is what governance is for. Governance is supposed to ensure a democratic government, I should say, ensures that the people that are voted in do what is necessary for their subjects, for their people. Or you could look at it from an individual standpoint. What can I do as an individual to impact my sphere's influence? Who can I speak to? Who can I try to give an encouraging word to? Who can I introduce? Who can I connect with that I think, well, no, this person will be able to help this person will be able to help this person. So there's two different perspectives to it, and there's two approaches, and all two gotta get used. You know, there's personal accountability, and we also have to hold the government accountable because we put it there, right? But you know, over to you, Mr. Stewart.
Fair enough. I like the term personal accountability. Who can I influence in my immediate sphere? These are very practical advice. Very simple, cost effective, you can do it. There's a philosophy in Chinese medicine called feng shui, right? And this is not the exact terminology, so I'm just going to try to paraphrase. But in feng shui, it basically suggests that if you want to change something on the outer world, right? On the outer world, you should first try to deal with the immediate surroundings, right? So you have a house, you live in a house. Simple habits like waking up our mornings, making up the bed, passing the broom through your bedroom, you know, keeping your space clean, um, folding up the clothes off the bed. Those simple acts do a lot for progressing your life, you know. Feng shui. Now, I want to get on to a point here, though, but before I do that, I want to agree with your statement about questioning these structures. Like, so this thing will do as I say, and just do as I tell you to do. I find that a lot of persons nowadays are challenging and questioning um, the authority of the world in these times. You know, challenging established authority, challenging established norms. I ask him, well, what is this? You know, um, how do you have the, or where do you have the power to impact my life in such a way when we don't have any everyday kind of interactions? You know, where do you derive that type of power from? In my everyday world, and I need assistance. You know, will these powers or these structures or these authorities or whoever, uh, do they reach in and assist me? You know, in my everyday life in trying to survive, to progress, to say. So when you have a challenging at the status quo like that, one or two things happen. Either the status quo is challenged and a new norm is established and the old norm dies out, right? Or the status quo absorbs that new energy and keeps the old agenda going and going and going. However, every good day has to come to an end at some point. Every good empire has to crumble at some point, right? And every king has to fall at some point. Every star has to fall at some point, and the sun has to set every day, regardless of whatever, right, Nigel? So there will definitely be something in life that it can't do nothing about, regardless of whatever power you may derive through the system. And through the system, meaning positions of influence. So positions of influence meaning a religious leader in the church, the boss at work, the prime minister, opposition leader, director of this, director of that. I'm talking about positions within the system. Right? Um, yeah, I think the people, Nigel, went through a serious grand awakening during COVID, where they saw the entire world basically crumble in front of us. So the world crumbled and came to a standstill where things that we thought we could not survive without, we had to survive without them during COVID. Because we were on lockdown, right? So when you wake up and say, well, I can't do without leaving home. Well, during COVID, you had to stay home, right? So that should have been a moment for lifelong learning, COVID. But no, we're going to talk about that in more alternative views. No, Nigel, I want to go on to a very important topic here, right? Um, and that is of Africanism, because I saw somebody in the chat, that's Sandra Franklin. But before we do that, though, let me shout out some people in the chat, though, because you know we've been going. We have 69 persons so far. Don't forget to like the program, people. Don't forget to share. This is our first night back on. We started a bit late, but nevertheless, you are here. Good night to, oh, before we forget, good night to Ramon Goodman. You know, Ramon was on with us last season. So, big ups to Ramon Goodman. Um, Respects to you, my brother. Um, so let us go on and welcome some other patron supporters. We're seeing Benjamin Cattle. We're seeing Square 4. Welcome, Square
Yeah,
4. Good to have you on.
you got square for it, man.
Yeah, yeah. Shirley Clark, Marcia. Jamie shout out Joseph already.
Hmm.
With the mirrors saying talking ain't going to do it. We want action and we want it. No, we have to send a message to these criminals. And I agree, Richard. So here's my quick solution. If you are found guilty for the use of firearm, in a public space where you endanger the lives of many innocent people and you kill somebody his starting point in prison should be 120 years. But he can't bring back hanging. Hanging is against the international
You went with
rules.
come view.
Yeah, he can't hang him, but he can give him 120 years in jail for, you know, dispersing a firearm in the crowd and possibly killing somebody. I think those type of sentences will work well. You don't think so too, Richard Mears? And at least some people will say, boy, if I pull this trigger, you get 120 years in jail. That way, you will have to prove that you really wanted to kill that person. Like, that you
I
would
mean,
take 120.
before you jump into Africanism, I have an alternate view. Now, you mentioned that the ages of the people who are going to prison, mostly, if I would be confident to say 99.9% are young men, right? Between the ages of 16, 17, and 30. I think
Mm.
there's great opportunity. Yeah, we gonna shoot the tail with licks because they deserve it. But there's great opportunity for reform. If we could have a prison system designed for true reform and not just a place you're gonna sit down, eat food, get fat, get healed up, you know what I mean? And come back home healed as a hero to do the same thing. If it really becomes a place of leaning into not only the mental of the inmates, but the spiritual of the inmates, start to cultivate that sort of lifestyle or punishment, if you want to call it that, that would know not only change them but influence and impact them on a deeper level. Somebody exiting and coming out of a prison, going back into the same environment, should now be equipped with tools to influence and impact that environment from going through what he went through. You know, in the United States, there's a big population of black men that go to prison, and while they're in prison, they find Islam. And I don't know if you ever heard or are familiar with the Nation of Islam. They have a very high track record of reforming an individual, taking an individual who does not see themselves as valuable, who sees their life as less than, easy to trade and shoot somebody going to sit on for 10 years, 15 years. This is common conversation. They don't think that that is a lot of time. They don't have a grasp and a realistic view of life and how valuable it is and how valuable freedom is. So I say that to say that the prison system, if governed correctly, if taking an alternate view on what it means to reform and help and inspire an individual, because of the young ages, they're still impressionable. They're still able to be influenced and impacted. The brain haven't fully developed. I read somewhere that the brain doesn't develop till fully develop till 25. Your prefrontal cortex, where that's your decision making, your management, your understanding of consequences. You know, so if that's fully developed by 25, these youngsters that doing this crime, I don't want to say they know no better because I believe everybody know right from wrong. But you see what I'm saying? Influences, impact, identity has a lot to do with how you show up and manifest in this world. But I just wanted to add that alternate view. But I would love to hear what you got to say about Africanism, Mr. Stewart.
Yeah, well, I want to have this conversation about reform. Um, However, I want to save that for an episode on its own, right? Because we won't do justice to a topic like that if we just scratch over the surface, right? So I support reformation definitely. I support reform. Um, However, You made a very interesting topic about the nation of Islam, and once upon a time that was an American conversation, but no, it's a Barbadian reality where the Muslim Islamic nation is playing a serious role in the affairs of Barbados. Right? So the Muslim nation here in Barbados goes to the prison here as well. Right? Uh, they have a reform program. Um, well, there, right? People get Qurans, people get the beanies and the gear and stuff. So, but there are programs out there as well from the Christian church who goes into the prison and do reform as well, right? However, however, I find, Nigel, that the Muslim Islamic influence is triumphing more in Barbados, having more say, having more attraction to the younger population of Barbados. Like, so, what's to say? Why would you choose the Christian Reformation program over the Muslim Reformation program in Barbados right now as a youngster? Like, where best to get that feedback from? Now, I got a lot of that feedback from interacting directly with persons who had the experience. Right? So you could hear it directly from the heart smoke, but I don't want to do that right now. So, you know, but thank you for raising the topic. But how we started this conversation right now, we really need to start speaking about this thing in this way, right? This is truth conversation. Right? This is truth conversation. This is about scenario morphing in Barbados, right? Morphing in Barbados, where any group who can influence people in a religious way, we really need to start to integrate them in the conversation now, Nigel. Right? Integrate them in the conversation in a serious way because we want to deal with the problem holistically. But with that being said, my brother, we're going to I want to acknowledge some people in the comments, but we have some walkout Omar Gibson who has put about 50 comments in the comment section. So I've lost a lot of what I would have been seeing here. So we're going to try to sift through. Omar is saying some very serious things on the live. You know, yeah, but
It's all good. We encourage zeal for conversation, but we encourage zeal for just that conversation. You know,
yeah.
if you are sharing information, you gotta be willing to hear information as well. So the overload, while the zeal is appreciated, you know, you gotta express yourself.
Mm, right. Um, let's say no disrespect to nobody, but anything that could possibly be defamatory to the Prime Minister of Barbados, can't condone on the platform. So just remember to keep your comments in good spirits so as to not get us banned, sued, or anything that you like by making defamatory statements about the Prime Minister of Barbados, please. So that's just my disclaimer. Um, so yeah, no, I think it was Sandra Franklin who was speaking about Africanism. Hey, no, let me just say, in my capacity, I am the man behind Stro and Perkins Caribbean. Hey, so a little bit about Stro and Perkins Caribbean. Stro and Perkins Caribbean basically would have been the lab or the laboratory, my laboratory where I would go and produce all this good magic. So Stro and Perkins allows me to take what I learned at university when I was studying banking and finance, to take that along with doing side courses along the way, along with being influenced and mentored by persons who would have been in prominent and senior positions within the economics and financial space. Sitting at the feet of senior economists and learning from them. Um, Sitting at the feet of former prime ministers, learning from them. Ministers of finance, learning from them, and learning from some of my people of down through the Caribbean and right here in Barbados, former teachers and like as this economy. So all you see, alternate views, is live stream, alternate views, the book, all of the articles in the newspaper, all of the video online content, all of that is fully sponsored by Stro and Perkins Caribbean. Right? So Stro and Perkins Caribbean allows me as the director of the organization. It allows me as the director of organization to be able to do the magic that you see. So all of the research that we did, remember we were on the Marcia Week. Good night to the Marcia Weeks program, by the way. Big up to Marcia Weeks and Dave Weeks and Caswell Franklin. It was good to see Caswell Franklin back out. So good night to everybody on the Marcia Weeks program. But yeah, so when we were there, you would have been seeing me, doing some research and putting out some information. We had some of the marches, we put out information. You saw again some of the videos, and we're putting these videos out. I am also a academic fellow, by the way, like a research fellow. I'm also an academic research fellow. So yes, I want to reiterate to people that I've been doing what I do before I entered politics. Right? I've been doing this before I entered politics. And in particular, I've been doing this before I joined the Democratic Labour Party. Right? And I want to reiterate to all and sundry that my work is not on behalf of any particular party or organization, and the production of my work again originates from Stro and Perkins Caribbean, and I reserve all rights. I reserve all rights to the work that you see produced by Kima Stro, and I want to reiterate it is not the views of any political party in Barbados whatsoever. No, I said all that to say, Nigel, on Africanism, that the world is changing, right? And before, well, it was only the European countries that had money to spare. They always said Barbados changed, the world changed. Now you have other countries emerging through the world with money. So China has awash with money, right? You have the emergence of the African continent having money, liquid money to send out in the world to invest, right? You have these different institutions, Nigel, that pop up, like the IMF, the IADB, the CDB, the development institutions. They lend to countries. You have commercial banks who may more lend to people, individuals, right? And countries in particular have options as to who they want to borrow from, right? Who they want to borrow from. So Barbados, like many other Western countries, we spend US dollars, Nigel. We spend US dollars in our everyday way of living, right? Um, Barbados, obviously being indebted to the IMF, sought to restructure the economy. And through the restructuring of the economy, Nigel, we are facing a new development in a modern Barbados. And we have something called the AFRIM Exim Bank, or the Afrexim Bank, sorry. The Afrexim Bank in Barbados, right? Being put forward as a way for the Barbados economy to have investment, right? No, it is not so often that you hear of investment available from Africa, right? Or the African region, Nigel. It's not often you say that. No, in my personal capacity, Nigel, in Stro and Perkins, I would have been invited and attended the first two launch sessions of the African Exim Bank in Barbados. I, I would have attended the first two sessions in Barbados. And I want to show a clip, Nigel, of some pictures that I would have taken when I attended the sessions. No, I attended the first session of the AFRIM Exim Bank, one happening at the Hilton Hotel. And then I attended another session for the African Exim Bank at Sir Lloyd Erskine Sandifer Center. And I learned a bit about what the intention of this so-called institution is, and I learned a lot about what Barbados could expect from having an African bank in Barbados. Okay. Now, we often hear talk about we should work with Africa. We see stories of Ibrahim Traore. Before it was Thomas Sankara and Muammar Gaddafi and Idi Amin and you know uh, all these African leaders. But no, in a practical sense, we are having discussions now about an African bank wanting to invest in CARICOM and invest in the region. So, your boy was invited, let me just say, and I went, right? So as I said, let me put those stakes in the ground because I realized that my words have some political currency. A majority of my words are interpreted to be political words. So let me just state without a doubt, I would have attended the launch of this bank. It has nothing to do with politics. So let me just say, the Prime Minister invite me and the Prime Minister call me up and say, Kimar, come. Nothing like that. Nothing like that. Through my professional capacity, it was there. And your boy wants to show you some brief pictures and videos of when I was there. Um, yeah, right. But in the meantime, Najee, you want to say something to me, load Um,
Sure. In terms of Africanism, um, there's no question that majority of the inhabitants of the island are descendants of those slaves brought over, those Africans brought over during the Atlantic slave trade. So Africanism is something that would have come to the help regardless. But as I said earlier, in the fullness of time, these are the impacts and influences that we are seeing manifest today. Now, there's a bank that is coming. That is the first instance of a true relationship. You know, they said put your money where your mouth is, so money where your mouth is, so that's something real, that's something grounding. My only question pertaining to that, so this is supposed to be a trade hub, right? What is being traded at this hub? Who is allowed to trade at this hub? What are the particulars of being able to do such? Those are my general questions, just genuinely hearing about it, reading about it, not knowing a lot of background. But I'm sure you could fill in on some of that. And I'm sure the questions I ask is some of the questions many people have. That would be my thinking. So
Mhm.
I will let you carry on our
Yes.
journey.
Well, let me just state that I am a lover of banks and the way how banks operate and the way how banks are structured. Hence the reason why I went and borrowed close to $16,000. I went to the University of the West Indies and pursued a degree in banking and finance at Cave Hill because I love banking so much, right? I think that the African Exim Bank is a good idea that is not being marketed or sold to the people of Barbados in the correct way. Maybe because the people who are handling it have a different motivation, right? So the motivation of the people who may be handling it might be from the perspective of maybe what they could personally get from the relationship with the bank or the bank, right? Um, that could be some politician who in there who's a lawyer who looking for a contract for professional and legal fees, right? Um, some politician who may be in there who may be looking for some shares in a hotel or something of the like, right? Majority of the people in the Parliament of Barbados don't even understand how the or daily squat about that bank, how it operate, what is it intended to do, what it's meant for, right? Because I sat and I heard at least two politicians attempt to speak about what is the African Exim Bank, and it was just total rubbish, right? Now, you asked the question rightfully, Nigel. Trade hub, right? The bank is intended to set up a trade hub. Like, anyway, before we get in, let me just show you my immediate videos of when I attended the first session of the launch of the bank. Um, yeah, so I would have met a lot of the persons there. So in that time. So yeah, let me just show you guys this quickly. Hey, all right. Yeah, so you see there was a boy at the launch of the bank. No, that was some years ago when it first came to Barbados. That was not recent, at the groundbreaking of the thing, but that was very recent. But that was years ago when it first came here. Um, yeah, so the idea of this trade bank, Niger, is to support Barbados's push, right? Barbados's push towards digitization. Simply, no. If you look at the African system today, and then even listening to Ibrahim Traore, there's this ideology of moving away from the US dollar, right? Moving away from transactions with the US dollar. So Donald Trump is unleashing tariffs on everybody, if not sanctions, tariffs, and these tariffs, countries around the world are saying that they need to shockproof their economies. So Russia is one country that has a shockproof in terms of you could sanction and put on tariffs, but it won't really impact us that type of way. We could survive without having your influence within our space. No, Russia is teaming up with many African countries to be able to solidify their economies that they could weaken Western influence within their economic spaces. However, one important factor in the international economic order, right, is that of trade with the US dollar and the control that the US dollar has and the confidence the US dollar has in the world still today as the currency for trade. Right? So the African Exim Bank is basically there to open a door for Barbados into something called PAPS. Right? PAPS. So I could pull up PAPS, the payment system. Right? That's what this thing is all about. Taking Barbados onto this digital payment system called PAPS. So as it is, Nigel, there's a payment system called SWIFT. Right? SWIFT, like the car. So SWIFT versus PAPS, right? So let me just give you a definition of what PAPS is. Like, what PAPS is, because you like direct definitions, Nigel.
For sure. You got to know what it means.
So this African bank again is here to advise us on PAPS, a payment system. So PAPS is called the Pan-African, word Pan-African. So let me show you my screen and show you what the definition on paps.com is. So you can see my screen and it says PAPS. You can see this here. PAPS, Nigel. Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. Right. Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. PAPS. So connecting payments, accelerating Africa's trade. Now, throughout the African countries, right, the African economies, they focus a lot on digitization, like real-time payment systems, nature. So the cell phone is basically the agent for everything. So you pay bus fare on the cell phone, you ride the train on the cell phone, you rent a scooter on the cell phone, you go into the vegetable market, you have a payment system on the cell phone. So therefore, the cell phone becomes the main transactor of your business. So throughout many African countries, the digital thrust and this digital drive is being set up, and Barbados is attempting to connect itself to the African Exim Bank. Barbados is attempting to connect itself through this system called PAPS and to shift itself away from the system that is called SWIFT. Right? So a little bit more about PAPS. It says PAPS is transforming how payments are made across borders in Africa. So PAPS, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, is a cross-border financial market infrastructure enabling payment transactions across Africa. So, Shankul, I'm attempting to answer your question here. What is the currency of the currency of this payment system, Shankul, is digital money. Right? Digital money. So
When
it
you
is
say
not a,
digital money, you say you talking crypto, or you just talking the transfer of money that would be in a bank across the borders of Africa and across CARICOM?
well, you know how you have money in your bank account right now,
Hmm.
but you have a card that you can go and swipe and pay for anything on that card.
Hmm.
Um, your cell phone now would just be a physical representation of the money you have in your bank account. So you will have a digital wallet. You have something called a digital wallet, and you would keep um, currency in the digital wallet. So you will got to convert physical currency into digital currency, and then keep that digital currency in your digital wallet. If that makes sense,
No, I go over it. I go over it.
yeah. So in Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Rwanda, and I know Rwanda quite well because I wrote an economics paper on Rwanda and the digital transformation in Rwanda when I was at university. So I know the way how some of these payment systems function in Rwanda. If you remember, the president of Rwanda came to Barbados, so I didn't get to meet him. Paul Kagame, I didn't get to meet him. Um, yeah. So a little bit more about PAPS, Pan African Payments, leading edge technology connecting African banks, payment service providers, and other financial market intermediaries, enabling instant and secure payments between African countries. Now, instant payments made by originators to beneficiaries in their local currencies, no matter where they are in Africa. Simplified payment, simplifying the historical complexities, and cost of making payments across African borders, providing operational efficiencies that open up vast economic opportunities for all stakeholders. And it shows you basically how the POP system will work. Right? So it says that POPs ensures instant or near instant transfers of funds between people in one African country and a beneficiary in the other. Now, that's fancy language. In basic language, in basic language, if I'm here in Barbados and I'm doing business with Niger over in Ethiopia, if we use the POP system, when I pay Niger, Niger will be paid in the Ethiopian birr as opposed to be paid in US dollars. If Niger intends to pay me back in return, I'll be paid in Barbados dollars as opposed to being paid in US dollars and then having to take that money to the bank to then have it converted and then to have to pay the bank all of these fees and everything or ever to convert the US. So that is the idea of PAX. Right? So they're trying to say you will save on transaction fees and you will receive your own currency and yada. So what will happen here now for Barbados is that if this PAP system is set up, they're saying that when the Barbadian does business on the PAP system, that if somebody Africa sending money to Barbados, when the transaction occurs, the person will be paid directly, directly in Barbados dollars, as opposed to having to convert to US to do transactions. 1 second, please. Right, any initial thoughts, Nigel?
I appreciate that explanation because in my reading of the article, that wasn't clear. And in my general understanding, I was thinking something further from that. So that cleared the understanding for me. So no general questions. I'll let you continue.
Yeah. So, viewers, I am hoping that you understand what I am saying. I'm hoping that you are understanding what I am saying. So I want to, there's a video right here. So let's watch this video, right? Let's watch this video that we can show you how this patch thing working. Wait, you getting any volume, Nigel?
You can still hear you. I don't see the video playing as yet, though. Yeah, I still can't see the video playing.
All right. 1 second.
Introducing PAPS, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, supported by Afreximbank, the African Union, and the AFCFTA, that's connecting cross-border payments in Africa today. Linking banks, payment service providers, governments and fintechs, making intra-African trade faster, more affordable, more inclusive, and supporting our shared vision to be one unified market under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, overcoming the fragmentation that created new borders, hampering intra-African trade for generations. With PAP's digital capability, you can reap the rewards of this transformation by enabling your clients' cross-border payments to be instant and cost-efficient, with transactions initiated and settled in local currencies, fully secure with best-in-class ISO 222 encoding, and totally transparent with enhanced analytics for better informed decision-making. If you're ready to extend your reach across Africa and accelerate trade across borders for you and your clients, it's time to connect to PAPS. Connecting payments, accelerating Africa's trade. Discover what PAPS can do for you at paps.com.
I hope that was informative, Nigel.
We got an echo from you.
Yeah, how about now? It should be clear.
Yeah, you loud and clear.
Yeah, I hope that video was informative if you heard it. I hope the alternative viewers are watching. I don't get the sense that many persons understand or heard it clearly, so I want to play over again. However, I just want to remind one more again that just trying to follow what you're saying, but if you want to get any conversation, you actually have to yeah. So let me get this thing going on here, Nigel. So replay that video one more time. That Barbadians and the world could see. Don't forget our global audience, Nigel. You could see.
For sure. You all see if
Exactly
we
what.
see sheepdog this season.
Yeah. So before I play the video, again, I'm going to say this video is about POPs. Hey, this video is about POPs, the Pan African Payment System, and the African Exim Bank. So the African Exim Bank is really there to set up this POP system that would allow this trading system to be brought in place in exchange for SWIFT. And SWIFT is the American payment system. So we're going to do SWIFT after POPs. So we're going to replay this video. I hope everybody's paying attention because this information here is worth, I can't put a monetary value on it. But this information is worth a lot. I sat back and I watched all of the criticisms. I sat back and I listened to everybody on this particular bike. And so far, none of the persons criticizing it have been accurate, to see what the real point of it is. Right? So the digital payment system, the bank fully supports it. And you will see in this video that POPs is fully supported by the African Exim Bank. So here goes the video. Remember, this is for knowledge and information purposes only, and the information should be interpreted as such. So here goes.
Introducing PAPS, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, supported by Afrexim Bank, the African Union, and the AFCFTA, that's connecting cross-border payments in Africa today. Linking banks, payment service providers, governments and fintechs, making intra-African trade faster, more affordable, more inclusive, and supporting our shared vision to be one unified market under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, overcoming the fragmentation that created new borders, hampering intra-African trade for generations. With PAP's digital capability, you can reap the rewards of this transformation by enabling your clients' cross-border payments to be instant and cost-efficient, with transactions initiated and settled in local currencies, fully secure with best-in-class ISO 222 encoding, and totally transparent with enhanced analytics for better informed decision-making. If you're ready to extend your reach across Africa and accelerate trade across borders for you and your clients, it's time to connect to PAPS. Connecting payments, accelerating Africa's trade. Discover what PAPS can do for you at paps.com.
Excellent stuff. Very encouraging. So much to look forward to over the next 30 years. I want to touch on.
Yes, sir. So I hope everybody got the general idea, Nigel, on what POPs is. As I introduced earlier, I said that the African Exim Bank is a huge sponsor of the POP system, and the African Exim Bank will provide the infrastructure to the government of Barbados to be able to facilitate that transaction over to the POP system. Now, the challenge with that, Nigel, right? Because I'm hoping that everybody's following the conversation here too, right? The challenge with that is that POPs is not a widely used system, or does it have a large volume of traders on it? Right? There's not a lot of volume on it. There's not much action happening on it. So whereas in SWIFT, which is again the American way of transacting money. So SWIFT is basically the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. Right. is a cooperative established in 1973 in Belgium and owned by banks, basically. So that particular SWIFT system, Nigel, let me just clear it up because I gave you the true definition. So SWIFT payments are transactions made through an intermediary bank that allows you to send and receive electronic payments internationally, right? But again, using the US dollar system, right? Using the US dollar system, the EU currency, the more known currencies, right? Now, majority of the world's transactions happen on these systems naturally on a daily basis. So remember, if you have a credit card and you do any credit card transactions in Barbados, more than likely you use SWIFT. You do transactions in New York, Nigeria, more than likely you use SWIFT, right? So majority of the payments throughout the world, credit cards, digital payments, they happen all through SWIFT as opposed to POPs. So POPs is a system now emerging, Nigel. And I said the motivation for POPs is basically to be an alternate or a replacement. Just like how BRICS is trying to shape a currency outside of the US currency, which would more likely be a digital currency, right? um, POPs is the proposed replacement for SWIFT payment system. So strategically, Nigel, this trade and development bank that you asked about, right? This trade block that will be developed. First, to make trade possible, you have to be able to move that money. So there's online criticism coming from like the United States and some persons about the African Exim Bank and the way it operates. Now, if you have a bank that does not operate on your payment system, obviously you will have a problem with it if you're supposed to be the world, you know, the world's moral authority on everything. You will have a problem with that system. Barbados has indicated that it intended to join BRICS, right? It intended to join BRICS and to move away from the US dollar and open up these new trade blocks. Now, it can't be opened up by a physical currency because you're not going to go euros, you're not going to go Chinese yen, and the world is going to the way of the digital, right?
Mhm.
So, as a person based in the US, Donald Trump being in power, tariffs, can you foresee why um, the African Exim Bank would be criticized by the American system in the way it operates? And what do you think about Barbados being a country who's pegged to the US dollar, right? Pegged to the US dollar, saying that, well, we would like to trade with the African Exim Bank um, and go the way of PAPS, which is not a large volume system, and move away from the US. Um, well, we are a couple of $1 billion down in debt already through the CNUS system. Any thought?
It sounds to me like the Exim Bank, the African Exim Bank, is making a wise decision in offering these small island nations an option, another option versus what is the SWIFT that they generally use. You can see the landscape, the political landscape of the US, what Donald Trump is doing, what he is enacting, and there's many contradictions based on ways of life, perspectives in these small island states and the US, which has been the global world power for some time now. Yeah, you can see that. Anybody looking at it with eyes to see will see that it provides the option to connect to a different type of, I don't want to say authority, but to connect to elsewhere. It gives you that option because if Donald Trump, President Trump, get tomorrow and they say, well, listen, they cutting off shipping anything to Barbados, man. Let me play my rules. This is my chessboard. Who else do they have to do trade with any capacity to bring things into the island on the basis that they do? So we could see that as it unfolds. What will happen? Time will tell. But anybody looking could draw that conclusion. What are your thoughts from a financial perspective? You muted.
Yeah. Well, from my perspective, the African Bank is doing what um, any person who's seeking investment would do, and that is to reach out where there are markets. Right? Um, they have decided that they want to take a route of a sanction-proof currency, which is to move away from the mechanism of the same SWIFT system, which would have kept the world, under the American control, and they're saying with the support of Russia that we could do an alternate way of living in terms of having a different payment system. Now, if Barbados and the Caribbean and other countries are open to doing trade with these blocks in the world, with these different trade blocks in the world, well, fine, diversify your portfolio. Right? Do trade with the US, do trade with Brits, do trade everybody, but you have to make the country structurally right to allow it to happen. Now, some people may say that that is an overly optimistic position to hold, and as Donald Trump is saying, you gotta pick a side. Either you are American side or you're on the Chinese side.
Draw your
Not
line.
in between. Right? So think of that now in a way where life has gotten at that point, where you as an individual usually took a middle ground. Um, you can't take a middle ground no more. You have to choose now between life and death. You have to choose now between I gonna stand up and fight, or I can shut my mouth and let go. So there's no more middle ground, and I think that COVID should have opened our eyes to realize that there's no more middle ground in the world anymore. So it's either you're China, you're pro China, or you're pro America. Barbados once had the same. Um, friends are all satellites, none.
Shout
But
out to the father independence for that one.
Arabaro, yeah. Um, however, though, the world has gone in a direction, Nigel. Uh, Barbados has taken a direction where we attempted, wait, Barbados has gone in a direction where we attempted to befriend um, all. Okay, so befriending all, we've taken some very different global positions, okay, and those different global positions, support for Palestine. At one point in time, Barbados and some countries in the region were opposed to Donald Trump. Now, Rubio came through the Caribbean very recently, and they seem to have very casual talks. Now we're seeing the Caribbean leaders openly opposing the America's ideology for on Cuba, on Haiti, and some. So we're seeing a difference in the way, an upheaval in the way how Caribbean countries and economies operate. So once upon a time where let's just say we would have fallen in line with a directive to say, well, No more China whatsoever. It's only America because you shot here. We can drop some bombs. You can drop some bombs on Barbados. If you don't do what we tell you. That's not necessarily the case anymore. It's gone from bombs now to more subtle ways of encouraging you to work with me. I want to encourage you to work with me. So it's going for bombs, and it's gone more subtle now. They just so all I'm saying here now, right, is that eventually, and eventually means very, very, very soon, Barbadians are going to have to wake up and realize, Nigel, that we are possibly not going back to the way we used to live before. Our economy and the structure of our economy will change with the presence of the African Exim Bank. Then there's the Chinese Exim Bank as well, Nigel, who's taking a hold in Barbados through loans to the Chinese government. Then there's the IMF, the IDB, and all of these other large institutions that Barbados is indebted to. So which direction do we really and truly pull and tug? Like when you pull it and the tug and really start, which direction do we really walk? Do we go the African way? Hey, do we go the PAPS way? Hey, do we go the digital way? Do we go the digital wallet way? Have your phone set up as a digital wallet? The phone becomes your ID. The phone becomes everything you need to do life in the country the same way it is happening in many African countries right now. So you have people out there saying, let's go to Africa, let's go to Africa, Africa's the way. Yeah, Africa's the way, Ethiopia is the place, of the Emperor, Haile Selassie and everybody, but African economies have changed. Right? African economies have changed, Nigel. And the way we do business in the Caribbean, right? The way we do business in the Caribbean, which was more leaning towards the American way of doing business, right? It is now changed, and we have other forces in the world that are pulling countries in other directions. So we gotta make a choice. Either we can take advantage of this Afrexi bike and the direction they could point us in terms of connecting ourselves on to a new way and a new liberty. But I say it is the digital way, right? It's the digital way. It is not the other way. It is not the other way that we are accustomed to right now. US dollar peg, having access to US currency to spend, credit cards. I mean, that's digital too, Nigel, don't get me wrong. That's digital too. But there's a vast difference. Nigel, in the way how this entire PAP system is set up, the way how it functions in and around Africa through the African Union as compared to the SWIFT system. Now, I want to show you guys a quick video on the SWIFT system, and then we can wrap up because we are definitely going on to 10 o'clock. Not that we're over time because we intended to go along to our first show. But this
Tyrone
one
there said something. He said the decision is simple: choose brown egg or white one.
yeah,
That's a
can't,
very
can't have,
funny. But that's the truth. That's simply what it is. Choose which one you want.
yeah.
I would say choose which one has the best interest of the people.
All right. So let's get this video on Swift. This is a short, quick video. So let's hear it up quickly, and then we chat it up quick. I runs out to about 10 o'clock.
Backlog. SWIFT, founded in 1973 by 239 banks from 15 countries, is a member-owned cooperative that facilitates secure financial communication between institutions. It assigns unique bank identifier codes to each member, enabling standardized cross border transactions. While SWIFT does not hold or transfer asset, it transmits essential details like account information and transfer amounts, ensuring efficient international payments. Headquartered in La Humfe, Belgium, it is overseen by central bank and it is governed by 25-member board. Exclusion from SWIFT can serve as a significant economic sanctions.
So in the end, Nigel, right, in the end, it said that exclusion from SWIFT could serve as a serious economic sanction. So imagine you,
That tickled
uh,
my ear too.
pardon?
I said that last part tickled my ear too. That sounded a little strange. But go ahead, explain it for me.
Yeah, so let's repeat it for the viewers though. The last statement that the lady made, which caught my attention, I caught Nigel's attention, which she said, an exclusion from SWIFT can serve as an economic sanction. Now, think about it. Let's give us a hypothetical scenario. If Barbados decides to go ahead through, through the central bank of Barbados to create a digital dollar, right? To create a digital dollar, a central bank digital currency, right? And to add Barbados onto this PAP system and to proceed forward with the African Exim Bank to have that infiltration in Barbados. Up comes we just say Trump because he's the president, but up comes Trump and he says, well, if you proceed with this system as intended to um, you know, weaken the influence of the US dollar in Barbados, um, what we are going to do is to call in all of our IMF loans. What we're going to do is to increase the variable interest rate on all of your IMF loans if you decide to proceed with the African Exim Bank. If America says that to Barbados, Barbados is in the pickle. Right? So it can get worse, Nigel. If they say, well, if you proceed with the African Exim Bank, we're going to exclude you or ban you from using SWIFT. That would cripple the entire Barbados economy because the entire Barbados economy is made up of SWIFT. The central bank, all of the commercial banks, every single transaction in Barbados happens on the SWIFT system. As long as you're transacting, transacting these currencies. So what do we do as a country? And how are you as a leader supposed to decide? Very well, there's serious economic opportunity available over here with the African Exim Bank and the PAP system. But there's also serious economic ramifications to face. Um, so, for example, on the American side, where they're saying to us, well, if we proceed with the African Exim Bank and destabilize the SWIFT system, well, we are going to retaliate and either ban you from SWIFT or reduce your transactions on SWIFT, and then we're going to increase the variable rate on all of those interest rates, and then call in all the loans and Barbados where you know how the foreign exchange to pay back the IMF and these institutions if they had to call the loans. So therefore, Barbados is in what type of position then, Nigel?
Well, Grant already brought, as far as I know. So I would say a choice has already been made, but at least for a certain few. I think the majority of the island probably is not aware or have a true understanding of what this truly means, as you just laid it out. Because I hearing and understanding that for the first time as well. See, we miss alternative views, but it's only alternative views you can come and get sense. So for sure, um, I think as a leader, It's just my opinion. I would do my utmost best to let the people know the reality, a true reality, and come into true conversation, dialogue with the people so that as a group, as a country, as an island, we could strategically, for all those that buy into the vision of their country and progression, we could, as a full collective, decide, hey, it's best that all of we, in some capacity, push and try to do this. Whether it is that the next couple of years going to be like this, or brace yourself for this, and this is how we advise and structural support and all that come into play. That is what I would advise. As we see how the world moving, is either go forward with the tight or you get washed away. Regardless of what happens, progression must be had because you can't stand stagnant. So that is what I would do as a leader. Just come into true understanding and covenant with the people and move forward on one accord. Try to get everybody on board with the mission that would be in the island's best benefit.
Okay. Now, open a thought in my mind. What would be the solution out of here? Right? What is the path out of here? Now, people often accuse Key Master of not bringing solutions to the problem, and quite frankly, it is an accusation that I sometimes accept because people in government get paid quite handsomely, Nigel. Very handsomely to give the people Barbados information. So this information that I am giving you, like the average person who's in the know wouldn't come and give it because it is valuable to the point that suggesting it come and say, somebody will have to pay them significant sums in an advisory role to be able to come and put that information there. What is the solution? How could you advise me forward as a what do we do here? So a possible solution that could be provided not by me, but this is what could be told to you as a country and as a leader. This could be told to you. Well, you want to move away from the US dollar. How about moving towards the US dollar? How about you dollarize your economy? Like dollarize it, what Panama is doing or did, right? Dollarize to see, well, look, you can now spend or have access to US dollars in your economy. So Barbados, where you can't really get US dollars or do over the counter transactions in US dollars, where you could only move with 10,000 US dollars the most on your person without being charged by the central bank, or if you are caught with foreign currency, you could be charged under the Exchange Control Act of Barbados. How about you reverse that now and say to the people where you could have not unfettered or unlimited, but you could have more access to foreign exchange, US foreign exchange, than the 10,000. Right? How about saying you can now do US dollar transactions, everyday transactions with your economy using US dollars? The problem that comes with that, or the problem that comes with liberalizing your exchange rate so much, right, is that the value of your dollar becomes depressed and devalued. So it will put, if you had to dollarize, it will put some pressure on the value of the Barbados dollar as a currency. So whereas it was 2-1, right? And scarcity, Nigel, scarcity, this is a term that we hear in other places, but you could apply here. Is scarcity, right? The value would increase. However, no, when US dollars become more in abundance, obviously the value then would then go down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? which will happen with the Barbados dollar. So the, the more people have access to foreign currency, the less people will want Barbadian dollars. And that would be the trade off, or that would be a scenario that Barbados could be faced with. Either go perhaps and push for digitization, or um, dollarize and allow the US to take on further control. Now, if you allow the US in terms of the dollar raise process, obviously, no, you know where that puts the Federal Reserve. No, you know that puts the Federal Reserve right within your space. No, in a more serious way, if you more adopt the US dollar. So you're seeing it comes back down to the same exact thing, but you just gotta pick which one. I don't want to say pick your oppressor. You just gotta pick who you want to be under. Do you want to be under the states, or you want to be over here?
Life is going to look very different under depending on which one you choose. Life will look very, very different in Barbados. I can tell you that,
Yeah,
and all of that has to be taken in consideration. But who I will ask you this question: who has the ultimate decision? Who holds the card to say A or B? Who makes that decision on beknownst of the people of Barbados?
I think. Well, as it stands, the elected officials, cabinet, will have that decision to make because such decisions are not exposed upon publicly to that would allow us into the conversation. Um, More than likely, these facts are not going to be put to the people in a simple way that I just put them here on the program. Um, yeah, they're not going to be. So the path for Barbados essentially will connote to how the people of this country um, vote. And I don't even know if it's to say how to vote because I don't know how to say if it vote because you can vote left or you can vote right, right? But I don't even know. I can't say if it comes
That,
down to a
that
vote.
that still does not impact the decision that is made. All that vote does is put who was in front of you in those positions, then to make those decisions. So as a citizen, and this is a very daunting reality,
Mhm.
yeah, you have to put the trust in those that you put into the seats to make these decisions on your behalf.
Yeah, basically, yeah. You have to trust that they will be do the right thing. Um, However, who's to say what is the right thing?
That is an amazing question.
Who is to say what is the
Some
right
would
thing?
say the majority. Some would say what the majority says is the right thing to do. But it, if we're looking at proverbs or if we look on a higher level, the road less traveled is one that usually provides what it is you need. What it is necessary in order for you to progress and grow. The road that is, open wide, easy to walk down that road, that that is lead a
Ah,
certain way. Both roads lead a certain place. We won't go.
okay. Well, I just opened the book of the living Bible because we can end on this note, right? So that's how we started. So we can end. So good night to all 171 persons on the live tonight. Thank you very much for tuning in. Very happy to have you back on Alternate Views. Um, Appreciate it. Don't forget to give me a like, a subscribe, and a share. Don't forget to share the information. Um, yeah, it's new settings, and we're gonna wrap it here. Now, we started with the Living Bible, and we took a quote from that. Now, I just happened to snatch the book as you were speaking, Nigel, and it showed me
She's on
it
break.
showed me Isaiah 29. It showed me Isaiah 29, verse 22. And at the top of the page, it says, "This is the way, walk here. This is the way, walk here." That is where the Lord who redeemed Abraham says, "My people will no longer pale with fear or be ashamed. For when they see the surging birth rate and expanding economy, then they will fear and rejoice in my name. Then they and the praise the Holy One of Israel and stand in awe of him. Those in error will believe the truth, and complainers will be willing to be taught. Woe to my rebellious children, says the Lord. You ask a voice from everyone but me, and decide to do what I don't want you to do. You yoke yourself with unbelievers, thus piling up your sins. For without consulting me, you have gone down to Egypt to find aid, and have put your trust in Pharaoh for his protection. But in trusting Pharaoh, you will be disappointed, humiliated, and disgraced. For he can't deliver on his promises to save you. For though his power extends to Zoan and Haynes, yet it will all turn out to shame. He won't help one little bit.
She's on break. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Isaiah's a
And
mighty book.
this is the way, this is the way to walk. Walk here. The book of the Living Bible, Nigel. So there you have it, people. There you have it. Now, the question was put, who do you choose? I say choose God. Choose God. Choose the way of the Lord. As I said, if you go to Pharaoh seeking Pharaoh's protection, he will humiliate and he will put you to shame. However, if you follow the way of the Lord, he will give you the right choice. He will tell you who or who we should not, or how the future of Barbados is to be determined going forward. However, when you're in a debt trap, Nigel, there's only yes so many options you have to get help. And as someone says, and as someone says, when your hand is in the lion's mouth, you ease it out. So with that being said, it is 10 p.m. I want to thank all alternate viewers for tuning on. I hope that you had a very engaging discussion tonight. I thoroughly enjoyed the first night being back on the show. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Yeah, Israel, Pedro Gemma, Tyrone Nurse, Fabian Yard, everybody from St. John, everybody from St. John that tuned on tonight. Everybody from the city, St. George, St. Lucie, all over Barbados. Thank you to my international viewers, Ireland, England, the US, St. Lucia, all through the Caribbean. Thank you, Nigel, for tuning on as well. Glad to have you on for the restart, for the new spring, and in April, the start of really and truly the new year. So new settings is back. Alternate views. Had a very good discussion, everybody. Hope you had a good. Hey, I hope you had a good show tonight. Right. I hope you had a good show tonight. You can leave your feedback in the comments. Tell me how you like it. Don't forget to like the program. Don't forget to share the program. Don't forget to tell persons that we've restarted and we are back in the hot seat every Thursday. Alternate views is back. So we're gonna get a word from Nigel, and then we're gonna get a final uh, word in, and then we're out here.
Okay. Again, thank you for all the viewers that tuned in tonight. New settings. What what is new? What do you want to bring about out of yourself? Again, from inside out, not outside in. What we're promoting is a lifelong learning, a open-mindedness, and a tolerance to other views, but also an authenticity to the view that we have. Because everybody has something to offer, and once we all come to the table, we could find the path, we could find the way. So thank you. My Thursdays are fulfilled again. Alternate Views is back on the runnings. This space is so special to come and ideate, conversate, have the input of the general audience, Barbados, international, Ireland, Scotland, England, Jamaica, Haiti, Bahamas. We invite you all to join us in this alternate views. We're all looking at the same world right now. We all have the same questions. We all have the same thoughts. What really going on? What do we need to do? How can we do it? And on alternative views, we will discuss that. We will dive through and cut through the deepest of topics, the more surface of topics, but all in the spirit of growing, glowing, and expanding. Positivity, progression, and proactiveness. So thank you for having me, Mr. Stewart. It is always a pleasure. And wishing everybody a good night and enjoy when the weekend. You're mute. You're muted, Kimo. You're muted.
Someone was saying it should be like the Joe Rogan podcast. Long. Yeah, but we're gonna get into that, Pedro. Though we're gonna start streaming a lot more. We stream maybe 2-3 hours a week, so we're gonna definitely have to increase, jump those numbers up a bit. But we're gonna have to see how practical is that would be, because our professional engagements, sure, Nigeria has professional engagements as well. So we're going to have to see how the time fits. But this is new settings, so we're definitely going to put in the effort, because the need is there, and we enjoy what we do. This is not supported anyhow financially. Let me just state that Kimar Stewart, as an individual or as a professional, we do not receive any type of compensation whatsoever for alternate views, right? And let me just say that alternate views functions very well in terms of collaborations and sponsorships or whatever. Now, alternate views will continue to be one of the most untainted programs which will bring the truth to Barbados. And sometimes hearing the truth involves listening to what your perceived enemy has to say as well. Right? So this will not be a platform that will discriminate views from any angle. Right? From any angle. This show will have views from government officials. This show will have views from independent-minded citizens. This show will have views from professionals. This show will have views for all and sundry in Barbados, because at the end of the day, regardless of which party or which government wins an election, the country still has to function thereafter. Right? So you don't win an election for only 50,000 people and govern for that 50 only. You still got to govern the entire place. And our job, my job, can't speak for Nigel can represent himself on this one. My job is to facilitate the platform that we get the truth and the views, the truthful views, right? Truthful views. Pedro, everybody, the ragamuffins, everybody, anybody could come on alternative views, right? Anybody could come with alternative. Furthermore, if we had the authority, if we had the ability to have a direct line between one or two of the inmates in prison that we could have communicated directly on alternative views, I would do it. Just to bring the raw truth to you, that you can hear a different perspective as to the narrative that dominates the mainstream space. But that being said, um, I'm at the end though. So thank you all for tuning in. Um, thank you, thank you, thank you. Rhonda Paris, back in. Good to see you. Caribbean girl, good to see you. Nigel have a lot of supporters, so gotta make sure you're here every Thursday, buddy.
They got Caribbean girl.
Mhm. Okay, Nigel, we're gonna play that clip. We're gonna play that clip that we started with tonight. And that will be our intro and outro on alternatives. So again, big ups to um, Ramon Goodman, who was on for this last season. We hope to see Ramon at some point in time in the future. Um, and I promise you this, guys. I promise you this. With the persons we have lined up for season 3 of Alternate Views, don't let me say it yet. This is going to be an exciting season, everybody. So, my people, yeah. Go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
No, just saying, keep it in. My surprises are good, and our patrons, our alternate viewers deserve a surprise, man. Deserve enough surprises,
Mm-hmm.
sure. So
Yeah.
blessed love, everybody, and again, enjoy when the weekend.
Yep.
Run
Okay.
that
So,
track.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Mila, Mila, Mila. Hold up, it's killing me. Hold up, it's killing me. Pour me only water, make I find my square root. Mi ò ṣeré, kò síná kò sómi economy yìí ti fẹ́ sọ mí di wọ́n fẹ́ sọ mí di kò sépo kò sówó economy yìí ti fẹ́ sọ mí di rèrèyé wọ́n fẹ́ sọ mí di ṣùgbọ́n èmi ò ní jẹ́ kẹ́kọ́nọ́mì kí ni o. Economy. Yeah, yeah. Mila, Mila, Mila. Hold up, it's killing me. Hold up, it's killing me. Pour me only water, make I find my square root. Mi ò ṣeré, kò síná kò sómi economy yìí ti fẹ́ sọ mí di wọ́n fẹ́ sọ mí di kò sépo kò sówó economy yìí ti fẹ́ sọ mí di rèrèyé wọ́n fẹ́ sọ mí di ṣùgbọ́n èmi ò ní jẹ́ kẹ́kọ́nọ́mì kí ni o.
All right. Good night, everyone. I will see you guys next week, Thursday. Don't forget to tune in. Have a good night to everyone. I will see you guys next week. Next week. So don't forget, like, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Have a good night.
Wọ́n fẹ́ sọ mí nílé, ṣùgbọ́n èmi ò ní jẹ́ kẹ́kọ́nọ́mì kí mi o. Economy no go give me a dataku. Economy no go give me a blood pressure. Nothing they work for Nigeria anymore. Latino they are for they watch football. I swear no checking jack for more. Ọ̀dọ̀ mi ni kún wá tí ń bá yóò. I'm so proud of my mind, I'm losing it. Like Safili Cocos, I'm losing it. Border is killing me. Yeah. Border is killing me. Border is killing me. For me, only what I make, I find my square root. Sina kò sómi economy. Kò sépo kò sówó economy yìí ti fẹ́ sọ mí nìyí. Ṣùgbọ́n èmi ò ní jẹ́ kẹ́kọ́nọ́mì kí mi o. Economy no go give me a data go. Economy no go give me a blood pressure. Economy back, tomato na goat, my people they worry yo. Ain't to tire, wala enemy. Abalajo, the petrol fi gbe lórí. Gbogbo dílé many people today ejo akeku. You dey promise and fail, all these na charade. Promise and fail, so charade. If I see your life, political masquerade. If I see your life, political masquerade. Hold up, it's killing.